Hi. Oh man, it's a lot colder today, isn't it? And what the story is. Okay, hi Diane. Just give Diane a sec now. I should have you. Oh, she can't join. Okay, hang on, let's see. Hang on, Diane, just let me try that again. Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Hi. I was just thinking, oh, don't let there be technical difficulties on this one. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, honey. It's cold.
It is. It is.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's horrible. I don't
Yeah.
like it. I've
Um.
got a fire and everything.
Oh, have you? Oh God, it's not that cold here.
No, it's like maybe it's just me, but it feels like November again. It's really cold. It's horrible.
Yeah. Well, it's sunny. I was up the mountains earlier this morning, and it's
Oh,
beautiful.
you're so
Sun.
good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm addicted.
You're so good being up the mountains. And here I am
Yeah.
sitting in front of my fire with my dog.
Yeah. Get out. Get out. After this, you've no. Okay.
Yeah,
So.
see, Susie's saying it's freezing. Yeah, I'm with her. It is freezing.
Okay. Good. Okay. At least it's not raining. And we are
No,
in
it's
Ireland.
not right. There you go. Looking on the bright side, you good
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah. As always. So I know people will just keep joining. There's already a good few on. Now I believe, Diane, I have conquered my technology issues, and that this will
Are we
be
going to
saved.
save it?
We're going to save it to ITGV, and we're also going to be able to download the video that then I can put on my website, but you can also probably put on yours if you want to as well, or your YouTube channel.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
Fabulous. Well, I will be coming to find out how you did that, honey.
Oh God. Okay, that might involve my husband. Anyway. Okay, well, so I guess one of the reasons when we were chatting and I was kind of saying to you, my feeling from and I guess from all the women that I talk to in Ireland, and when I do my talks around the country and so forth, is it's such a big area when you get into HRT. So I was kind of thinking for today, we'll see how we go, but I was thinking if we try and tackle estrogen first. Now I know we'll probably talk about, progesterone, testosterone as well, but just to me, there's a lot of gaps in that I think we need to talk about, and just things that I guess I would be conscious that come up when I do talks, that come up time and time again, the same kind of questions and so forth. So I mean, I guess we can see how we go. And I guess just to start, before we kind of talk about the different forms and so forth, just show you something. And I know you like this, okay? This is
That's so funny.
Oh, you have it there. Thanks. Okay. If anyone wants to educate themselves more on estrogen, I would highly recommend that book, Estrogen Matters by Dr. Avram Blooming. Obviously, there's loads of other resources, but that is a great go-to. But I guess just what I always say about estrogen is, it's not just your periods, it's not just your ovaries, it affects literally everything in our bodies, as do all the hormones. But estrogen has so many interactions with different parts of our body. And
I think it's over 400.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Around
350.
Yeah, 400. So like it's massive, absolutely massive. And like look at even for any of you watching who aren't familiar with Dr. Lisa Mosconi, her and her research team in North America are kind of leading cutting edge research in terms of estrogen and the impact on the brain, and the lead on impact onto Alzheimer's and dementia. So it's just in relation to, you know, when you think about the hormones and you think about estrogen, it's so far reaching, and don't just, because a lot of women I talk to just think, oh, well, it's just my periods. But it's so much more than that, so much more than that. And as you were saying, like 400 bodily processes. So, you know, that's just, you know, I think an important thing to remember when you think about estrogen.
Yeah. I think it's really key to continued female well-being.
Yeah.
Like long term, you know, things like so we'll talk about all the symptoms and stuff, but I think, you know, you just mentioned brain health. We're thankfully learning more and more about that all the time.
Yeah.
The brain is absolutely packed with estrogen receptors. So helps to support our serotonin levels, helps to support neuroreception. We think it probably helps with long-term neuroprotection. So, you know, kind of they're massive on their own. Then you've got the effect on bone health. So we know that it plays a long-term part in bone health. Then you've got heart health.
Yeah.
We know that it helps with heart health. We know that it helps to control our cholesterol levels. We know that it helps to protect against type 1 diabetes. We know that it helps to protect against colon cancer. All those things are absolutely key. And that's before you talk about all the other stuff. But I think to kind of visualize it, it's really important to say that, you know, when you think about when you decorate your Christmas tree and, you know, you put all those beautiful fairy lights on, and then you have that moment where you flick the switch, and if you're lucky, they still work, and the tree lights up everywhere with all those beautiful twinkly little lights. If you think about a woman's body, it would be like us if we flicked a switch to show where all the estrogen receptors were. She would literally be completely covered in all those gorgeous little twinkly lights where the estrogen receptors are.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant analogy, because it's like a Christmas tree, but it is, because it's literally that's it. You can't just think about it just being related to our ovaries and the female genitals. It's the whole body, top to toe.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think a lot of that, lovely, really comes from the whole kind of social stereotyping of, you know, sort of, well, oh, well, it's women and it's hormones and, you know, they're going mad, and, you know, it's all about periods and it's all about fans and hot flushes. And it's like, do you know what? That is literally, you know, kind of about this much of it. There is, it's a whole world when we start to talk about hormones, because they literally affect every part of our, you know, our psyche, our physical health, our emotional health, our mental health, etc., etc. It's, you know, it's a whole kind of world all on its own.
It's massive. And I think, you know, like you and I see it in terms of, like, it's so great to see so much research being done now. I mean, you know, even
and being talked about so much, don't you think?
Yeah. Even now, I know Dr. Louise Newson, and you're involved with there in terms of looking at the impact of COVID, even, and how men are being impacted more than women again, and they're looking at it due to estrogen. So it's far. So I guess in terms of one of the things, Diane, that I see a lot here in Ireland is and we're definitely making inroads. There's definitely been really good inroads made in this. But one of the continuous questions that I get asked is, a lot of women think, oh, but it's only a pill. Okay. And this is where we're definitely making massive inroads, but certainly a lot of the talks that I would do, you know, a lot of people will say to me, oh, but estrogen, it's HRT, it's just a pill. So, the forms of estrogen, right? Which, as we know, and
there's loads more now. There's loads more options now. You know, we've had lots more options for a long time, and in fact, we've just had another one too. So just, you know, as you said, we'll focus on estrogen today, but it is important to say that if you're a woman who has had her womb removed, then vast majority of the time, your your hormone replacement would definitely start with estrogen. If you've also had your, sorry, I'll start that again. If you've had your womb removed, you would have estrogen. You don't need progesterone, because progesterone is really given to help to protect the womb lining. If you've had your womb and your ovaries removed, then you would definitely need estrogen, but you would probably also, in fact, almost definitely need testosterone as well. So if you still have your womb, it's estrogen and progesterone. But if we kind of focus on the types of estrogen you can have, so as Catherine said, you can have your estrogen as a tablet. But I bought some samples so that you could have a look at some of the other options. You can also have your estrogen as a patch. So the patches are really, really fine. You generally change patches twice a week, and they stick on either the outside of your thigh or your bum. Now, when I'm talking about all these, the lovely Laura, fabulous pharmacist over in Ireland, has sent me a list of everything that's available. Have you got that, Catherine?
Well, I posted one the other day, but that was only, I think there was only 3 or 4 mentioned on that. So if there's a more detailed list, let's share it.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll share that on both our pages. So there's basically what's available in Ireland is different to what's available in the UK. So generally you don't have quite as many options. So there are patches. There's also a gel. In fact, there's 2 gels. So there's a gel called Estrogel, and there's another one called Sandrina. Do you have those, lovely? Do you know?
We have Estrogel,
Okay.
And just to go back to the patches for a sec, because one of the things that I would find is, again, questions in relation to, you know, you've two women in an audience. One's on, oh, mine's really tiny. Mine's really big. And I think it's just to remember with the patches is that obviously the size will depend on the dosage, because you've got very low dosage, which basically means, you know, the size of your patch is going to be smaller, and obviously higher dosage, the patch is going to be bigger. And I think the other important thing there is, and I have had many women who haven't put them on in the right place. It's really, really important to put them kind of somewhere, I would say somewhere where there's fat, and they're absorbed.
Below the waist.
So like the thigh is generally seems to be kind of, you know, one of the areas, the abdomen, somewhere like that, just where there's more fat. But I think it's just to kind of just bear those little things into account as well. And in relation to the patches,
the patch sizes.
Sorry.
So some of the brands are bigger than others as well. So you're right. Kind of the dose means they get bigger, but some of the brands are tiny. So Estradot is really tiny, whereas things like Everel, the 100 patch is quite big. So as far as the dose that you can have, Catherine mentioned there are different doses. So the doses start at 25 micrograms. So that's weeny. That's a really tiny dose. Go up to 50, then to 75. Then to 100. So 100 is the highest single dose patch, but it's also important to say that particularly for young women who are maybe in a medical menopause or in a surgical menopause, or for women who need a higher dose, you can have you can use more than one patch at one time. So for instance, you know, you can't compare one person to another, but for me, I use patches, and I'm on 150 micrograms. So I use 100 and a 50 at the same time. There are people who are on more than me. There are people who are on less than me, but a lot of people are told by their doctors, nope, 100 micrograms is the top dose. And particularly for young women in surgical menopause, you know, very much typically for younger women, that's probably not going to be anywhere near enough. They're going to need more than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's a really good point. Because certainly I would say here, I would say the vast majority of women are maybe advised that they can only go up to 100.
Yeah.
So I think that's really good, just
Yeah.
for people to do that. Okay.
So
And in terms,
go on,
yeah,
lovely.
no, in terms, and I always say too, like with the when it comes to any form, whatever you choose, it's obviously personal choice, and it's obviously taking in
Yeah.
your history into account and so forth. For a lot of women, absolutely love the patch. Other women, sometimes I think it's quite rare, might have a little bit of a skin irritation and so forth. But
Sometimes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Some people definitely do, lovely. I think that's why it's really good to have options. So the gel is the second option. So I think
Yeah.
you said you have
Yeah.
estrogel. There's
Yeah.
another gel called Sandrina.
And
So
Diane, would you,
mm,
would you just recommend, so say if someone goes into the GP and the GP kind of says to them, look, yeah, we'll agree, we need to start an HRT, and they then have, we'll talk about local estrogen in a few minutes, but they then have a choice in terms of patch or gel. Would you go for the patch over the gel, or again, do you think that's down to personal
so
uh,
I think it's a
vision?
couple of things. Yeah, I think it's a couple of things, lovely. I think it's partly it definitely is personal choice. Would you prefer to change a patch every, kind of every 3 or 4 days? Or would you prefer to rub a gel on every day? So that's a very individual choice. It's also important to say that we now have, I'm not sure if you have it there, I'm sure Laura will tell us. I think she might have just joined. There's also a spray called Lenzetto.
Well, I don't think we have the
Okay.
sprays yet.
So it's literally, it's only been available here for about 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay.
So it's a little aerosol pot, and then it's got quite a big head on it, and you put
Okay.
it on the lower sort of outer arm and spray on, and that will give you one spray of that is the equivalent to a 50 microgram patch.
Patch. Okay.
So one spray of Lenzetto, 50 microgram patch, or 2 pumps of gel, that would all be roughly the equivalent to 50
Right.
micrograms. And somebody's asked, what dose do doctors start you on? So the NICE guidelines generally advise that women should be started on the lower end of the scale, the lower
Yeah.
dose. Because basically what you want to
Yeah.
do is you want to start with it, and then after a couple of months, if you think, oh, do you know what, I feel kind of 50% better, then you
Yeah.
can talk about moving up. But you generally start low. Of course, if you're
Yeah.
27 and you've had both your ovaries removed, starting you at 25 or 50 micrograms is no use at all. You need to start on a much higher dose. But I
Yeah.
think it's
Um,
partly down to choice, but it's also partly down to what's available.
yeah. Yeah. Obviously, that's a big one at the moment, and I know someone has just written there that their body doesn't absorb the gel very well.
Yeah.
So I guess you're getting into different reasons and so forth. Diane, there's a lot of questions coming up, so let me just scroll back through and let's just see what are there, because otherwise we won't get through them all. I'm 9 years post-menopause, never took HRT because of family history, so GP reluctant to prescribe. Is the window closed or should I start?
Okay, so it very much depends on what you mean by family history. So I'm guessing you're probably talking about breast cancer. I might be wrong. If you are talking about breast cancer,
Oh, I think, sorry, yeah, I think it's breast cancer. Sorry, yeah.
Okay. So a single incidence of breast cancer in the family, as far as a breast cancer specialist is concerned, wouldn't be classed as a family history. You would need a significant, kind of a significant history. It's also really important to say that, of course, with breast cancer, and I'm not being glib when I say this, but with breast cancer, the biggest risks for breast cancer are being female, because obviously we know that breast cancer in a small amount of cases affects men too, and getting older. So if you have a female relative who had a breast cancer in her 60s or 70s, that doesn't necessarily preclude you as a woman in your late 40s or 50s from starting HRT. It's very much, it would be good if you knew what type of breast cancer she had. So was it estrogen receptor positive? Was it estrogen receptor negative, etc., etc.? What sort of breast cancer? But having a single case of breast cancer in your family is not a significant family history. If your GP is reluctant to prescribe you, then it's worth seeking expert advice, essentially. And I think it's also really important when we talk about menopause, HRT and breast cancer, just to recognize that, you know, the risks with HRT are absolutely tiny, particularly if we're talking about the body identical plant derived estrogen. So that's your patch, your gel, your spray, and the plant derived progesterone. So there's only one of those, that's called Utrogestan. So combining those two, we've only got one 5-year study using body identical estrogen and progesterone, but in that study there was no increased incidence of breast cancer above the national average. So, and you know, actually things like drinking,
I just say that
alcohol, obesity, not doing exercise, they all increase risks. So it's very much about kind of balancing it out, essentially.
Sorry, there's another. I'm allergic to plasters, so would gel be better? Certainly, I would have said, I would have said try the gel. So we got here. Hang on.
Oh, I've lost you.
Sorry.
You're back.
I'm trying to get my screen back. Oh, yeah. Okay. I can cope. Had 5 years of hell. Okay. I'm hoping you're now out of that. Problem is when I sweat, the patches get loose. I mean, I think, look, if that's the issue, then certainly it's worth trying the gel or the spray. I mean, hopefully that spray will be available on the Irish market soon enough.
Laura's here. I can see Laura's here. She might be able to tell us if it's coming.
I know I'd asked
Fabulous pharmacist.
I'd asked her a few weeks ago, and I know it wasn't available then. So unless it's kind of come online now at the moment, my patch size is getting bigger every month. I'm presuming that's possibly the prescription from the doctor. That's all it says.
It depends. It could be that the brand is changing because of availability, or it could be that the size is. Here we go. She says the spray is not here yet. Thanks, lovely.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Laura.
So if we've got it here, you have it.
Yeah. And also, I know at the moment we're getting a lot of brands coming in, I think from Germany and Spain. So obviously they're possibly, like you said earlier, you know, the sizes are different based on the brands. So that's possibly why you're seeing a change every month as well.
Yeah. I've just noticed something lovely. Somebody's just said, I'm 9 years in post-menopause. Is it too late to start HRT? Officially, no, it's not too late. I don't know where you are in the world, but it's going to very much depend on your GP. So for a lot of GPs, if you went to them after 9 years, they would say probably not, in which case ask to be referred to a menopause specialist. You should still kind of, as we get older, the kind of, it needs to be around a conversation, essentially. But officially, no, you're not. But it just depends whether or not your GP is open to prescribing it. Somebody else has said about, I saw something about hysterectomy, but I missed it.
Diane, sorry, just on the GP side of things, and you know, I often talk about this. I just give my story with the GP. So I absolutely love our family GP, right? We've been with him. I've been with him through three pregnancies. My husband still goes to him. The boys still go to him. I don't go to him anymore. Literally about
Right.
4 years ago. It's a fabulous, fabulous man. And I love him to bits. And he was brilliant for the child rearing years and for pregnancy and for everything. But I just felt that for this next stage in my life, I wanted to have someone who was just really, on top of women's health, in terms of from the menopause point of view, and that obviously would understand, where I was coming from. So I know I'm sure it could be the same in England, but here, women are extremely reluctant to change GPs. Now,
Right.
I changed my GP about 2.5, 3 years ago, and I now go to see a lady doctor near where I live. And for me, the way I've looked at it is all my kids still go to the family GP. I changed because, I've got another 20, 30, 40 years all going well. And I just want someone who will be there to work through this stage. And, right now I'm not using HRT because I don't need to, but I can't say 6 months down the line whether that will change, but at least
Yeah.
I know I'm with a GP who's ready for, if I need to start looking at, gels or patches.
You're
So I
planning
think,
ahead.
yeah, but it's really, really important. I honestly, because I hear the horror stories, you hear them, and I just think we've fabulous, fabulous GPs in this country. But I think you have to take it into account for the stage of life you're at, and if you need.
Easy, Catherine, how easy is it for you to change GP there?
Oh, it's really easy. Because from my perspective, you don't need to. Well, I guess I didn't really have any ongoing health issues that I needed to get records transferred. But under data protection, there's no issue with getting you're fully entitled to getting your records transferred from one GP to the other. But you don't necessarily need to do that at all. The way I looked at it was. I was literally starting from a clean slate in terms of I wasn't carrying anything over, and if I needed to, I could have transferred records. But really, yeah, it's straightforward, very straightforward. It's up to you. You literally just go and you ring another GP. And now the one thing, like my GP now has a waiting list. So obviously you will find those that are,
Yep.
known or have got a reputation will obviously have waiting lists. But again, it's just a matter of getting your name down there and just holding out. But I guess in Dublin it's one thing, but certainly I would find in other parts of the country, and I work with a lot of women who are extremely reluctant to change. And I just think that it's really important to just look at it in terms of we've got a lot of years ahead, and our health is so important. So I just wanted to just think about your GP support.
Yeah, I think.
So sorry, you
I
were
think
saying, was there a question?
No, I was just going to say. Well, first of all, I was just going to say it's quite difficult particularly in kind of densely populated areas here. So in places like London, Birmingham, Manchester, Newcastle, etc., it's going to be quite difficult because you were saying about the waiting lists. Kind of some of those waiting lists are massive, and also we don't have a huge amount of general practitioner in the NHS menopause people who have kind of great menopause education.
Right.
That's one of the biggest issues. Which is why, as we're campaigning to change that. But that that is a really big problem for people, is actually being able to access the right help and support. And currently, more and more people are thinking, do you know what, I've got no choice, but I'm going to have to find the finances to pay privately. And whilst I think it's brilliant that we've got that option and we've got that choice, but for a lot of people, that's not a choice. It's not something that they could ever consider.
Yeah. For
You
us
know, I,
here,
I've heard of people who are, you know, they're taking out a credit card to be able to pay for their private care.
okay,
And
I'm
you like
sure
that,
it's here.
that's a ludicrous situation when you think this is going to happen to half the population of the world.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess for us, we're paying for our GPs anyway in the vast majority
Exactly.
of cases.
It's a
But
kind
I
of,
mean,
it's a different system.
yeah, yeah. But like, you know,
Yeah.
we're both fully aware of the fact, you know, we need that training in medical school and so forth. But, okay, sorry, just go on with,
Yeah.
how do I know what's enough estrogen? I'm on 50 now. Is it a matter of trying it out? I mean, I think you've got to look at your symptoms and look at how what changes are happening. And I always say it's because listen, you do forget, and I particularly find with women who have, you know, maybe they're having say 7 8 hot flushes a day, and then they'll start estrogen, or they'll start a form of HRT, and then they'll realize, oh, I'm still having hot flushes, and it's like, but how many are you having? And maybe they're only having one or two. So I think it's really important to kind of keep a track, because otherwise you will forget.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, the other thing that you can do, you can share this, lovely, is there's on the menopausesupport.co.uk website, you can download a symptom checker.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think it's quite useful to kind of print a few off. When you start your HRT, do a symptom check before you start it. And then 3 or 4 weeks later, go through the symptom checker again and
yeah,
see, okay,
yeah.
so on a scale of 1 to 10, how much better am I?
Mm.
Because it is, as you say, it's really easy to forget just how rubbish those symptoms were when they've improved. And the ideal, you know, what we really want ideally is for women to be asymptomatic on an ideal HRT preparation that is right for them. We don't want them
Yeah,
to be having symptoms, but it is a case of you start, you know, kind of on a low dose, and then, you know, kind of then you build up essentially. And it is really all about, when we're talking about estrogen, it is really about optimizing the estrogen.
yeah. Okay. I've been on Everald
Catherine,
Conti
somebody
for,
asked about a menopause specialist in Dublin.
okay. I'm still behind here trying to get through. There's a load. There's a load of questions.
There is a lot of questions.
Yeah. The next, I'll just keep going down, and maybe then in a minute we might just stop the questions and continue on with what we wanted just to go through the different
Yeah,
forms.
sure.
I've been on Everald Conti for about a year, and before that, Everald Sequi for many years. I would like to get a review from an expert, but can't afford to do it privately. I'm presuming this is someone in the UK. Should I ask GP to refer me?
Yeah, so
I,
if you, yeah, so here, so if you're in the UK, you can certainly ask to be referred to a British Menopause Society menopause specialist. So I think last count, I think we've got about 60 um, NHS menopause clinics, but that's for the whole of the UK. That's for the whole country. So essentially, if you've got one that's close to you, then you can ask to be referred. If you've got one that's out of area for you, you can still ask to be referred, but that probably then has to be referred on to the medical board for them to kind of tick the box to say you can go. But you can go to the British Menopause Society website, and you'll find a map, and you can put your postcode in, and it will bring you up a list of, just be careful that you tick the NHS box, and it'll just bring you up a list of the closest NHS clinics.
Okay, very good. If it's somebody in Ireland, I know on Facebook a while ago I was sharing resources throughout the country of different GPs who had completed extra training in menopause. So maybe have a look at my Facebook page if you're in Ireland, and I think I've also got some links on my website. So just in case, but I think that was probably the UK, Diane. Sometimes
Okay.
I wonder if I'm just going to go try and just go through the bigger questions.
Yeah.
Let's see. Are you? Are you supposed to put your patch where there's fat on your body? I would say yes to that. In terms of my understanding, is the patches have always absorb better where there's fat on your body, and I think the thigh is generally place where
Yeah,
most
outside the
like.
thigh, on your bum, you know, wherever it's best for you, really, but just below your waist.
Yeah. Okay. Patch below waist. Yeah. Ideally, someone came back on that. Oh, we didn't even need to answer that. Okay. Sorry. Diane, do you know how long one pump of estrogel stays in the system?
Well, it's a daily dose. So
Mm.
the point is, it's really a 24-hour dose, essentially. That's the whole point of doing it daily. So you're not building up some huge store of estrogen, because if you think about it, if you stop taking it, your symptoms come back. So, you know, kind of it's a 24-hour essentially dose.
Yeah, Laura just came back on that, saying generally lasts 12 to 24 hours, but I guess maybe
Yeah.
it starts to down. I'm on 5 milligram tablet daily and feel fine. I'm 52, had hysterectomy, no overuse. No, I think that must be no ovaries. Sorry, no ovaries removed. Is this dose too small? I mean, I guess you're feeling fine. I mean, I think with the
It's about how
dosing,
you feel.
yeah, yeah.
It's definitely about how you feel, you know. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I find is patience is very important when it comes to HRT, in terms of you have to find your sweet spot. You know, it's like anything. It's not
Yeah.
going to happen overnight, you know. You know, you have to kind of, yeah, it takes time. So I think if you're feeling fine, that's that's a good indicator. Being obese and smoking are higher risk factors for
Yeah,
breast
definitely.
cancer. Laura, yeah, totally. And alcohol. Can I just say, alcohol is a huge
Yeah.
one, and I'm seeing an increase in that with COVID at the moment as well. So, you know, I think
I think
you
it's
know, that's,
also, you know, we also have to think, don't we, about our lifestyle. You know, it's
yeah,
all very well, you know, it's great, you know, if you can get your HRT and you can get the type that you want, etc., all wonderful. But if
yeah,
you're then gonna sit and eat, you know, kind of mainly sugar or mainly fat, and you're not
yeah,
going to do any exercise, you're not going to look after your diet, etc., it's kind of, do you know what, it's a holistic picture,
yeah,
isn't it? It has to
yeah.
be about reviewing
Big
the lifestyle as well.
Yeah. And Diane, like on that, you know, we've had this conversation because sometimes people say to me, "Oh, Catherine, you're a wellness warrior. You know, HRT. You know, what are your thoughts on it?" I'm like, it's holistic, and you know, I'm really whatever your choice is, it's such a personal choice, and whether it's HRT or whatever it is, and the majority of the time, Diane, as we know, it's not going to be one thing. It's not just going to be HRT. You have to do the lifestyle. You may
Yeah.
have to do, you know, mental, emotional aspects. I mean, because it's such a big area, and for me, it's very much just finding your little toolkit that kind of supports you, you know, and yeah, as
Yeah,
we know, not one size
I
fits
agree,
all.
lovely. You know, I think the most important thing about whatever your choices are going to be is that whatever you're deciding to do, that it's based on factual, evidence-based, non-biased information. And
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
that's the trick. And that's not as easy to come by. You know, there's some really good sites, there's some really good information out there, but you know, when it comes to you purchasing something, when it comes to you buying something, you know, when we're fed a certain kind of story about purchasing things, you know, that's what marketing's all about. You know,
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
business. The business of
yeah,
marketing is to make you buy things. It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
generally for your health and well-being. And menopause has definitely
Oh God,
become,
it's a
you know,
billion
it's a
dollar.
massive industry. You only have to look at all the products that are coming out week after week after week.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, if you're thinking about HRT, or you're scared of HRT, or you've read lots of tabloid headlines, the most important thing is get some factual, up-to-date, non-biased information. You know, British Menopause Society, Menopause Doctor website, menopause support, you know, Wellness Warrior, all those things. We're all giving factual, evidence-based information.
Yeah.
And then as far as kind of products are concerned, just bear in mind, if you're seeing any surveys or you're seeing any research for products, that research will probably have been funded by the company that make the product.
Yeah.
So just kind of just keep a really you know, sort of just be very kind of skeptical about a lot of the marketing stuff that's out there. I'm not saying none of it works, but there is literally no one size fits all. And that's the same with HRT too. It absolutely has to be individualized. There are lots of different products. There are lots of different doses. And it's about, as Catherine said, you used a brilliant phrase, it's about finding your sweet spot.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, and I would find a lot here where women go into, you know, any shop or chemist, and they'll send me, or they're on Dr. Google, and they'll send me a picture of a screenshot, and they'll say, Catherine, what do you think of this? And I'm like, run 100 miles, you know, because
run fast.
But I'm always saying to people, you have to read the labels, you have to understand what's in them, you know, whatever it is. So, you know, anyway, that's a whole other thing. We better crack on here. So just had subtotal hysterectomy. I'm on 4 puffs of estrogel now for a couple of months and not feeling 100%. What's next?
Okay, so that's back to your prescriber to talk about, you know, kind of what needs to be. So it's about titrating it. So essentially that just means about kind of slightly adjusting your dose to try and get it right for you.
Right. Yeah. 9 years post-menopause, is it too late to start HRT?
No, technically no. It's never, I mean, technically, no, it's never too late. You know, I know I've had a couple of questions recently from women who are in their 70s who started it, did really well on it, were told they could only have it for 5 years, now are very symptomatic. The problem is, again, it's an educational thing. It's about getting in front of a specialist, about somebody who understands it and feels, to be fair to all those doctors out there who don't have the education, you can't expect somebody to feel confident to prescribe if they haven't got the backup. So it's about getting somebody that does understand, you know, sort of, it should be a lower dose, what kind of type shall we try, etc., etc. So, you know, sort of, you're probably going to have to see a specialist.
Yeah. Since my menopause, which started 7 years ago, I've had all the symptoms I've heard described in various podcasts, such as dizziness, weight gain, insomnia, atrial fibrillation, etc. Oh, hang on, sorry. Can I take HRT? Is it too late? I don't know what age or anything, but I would imagine yes, because it's 7 years ago. So you're still in, possibly still in perimenopause, menopause. So certainly I said that's a discussion for your medic. Oh yeah, fab. Laura came back and saying, yeah, get a menopause specialist. Thanks, Laura. Okay, if you don't have major symptoms, is it still worth trying HRT for its brain, bone, heart protection? Certainly, can I hit the brain? Because, you know, I'm obsessed with that part. Obviously, the research that's coming out at the moment is cutting edge in relation to the impact of estrogen on the brain. And Diane mentioned that earlier, the receptors and so forth. I certainly think it's well worth looking at. I don't know what age you are, but it's certainly worth looking at. And again, I mean, it does come down to personal choice, and it does come down to that conversation with your doctor. Diane, what are your thoughts on that?
So again, you know, kind of, I think I sound a bit like a broken record really, because, you know, it's about, you know, kind of, it's about having the latest, as you say, cutting edge information, whatever we know at the moment. And then it's about looking at, okay, so how am I feeling? How old am I? You know, that's also
Yeah.
key. So remember that when we're in perimenopause, once the hormone level starts to change, it's during that time, it's during that perimenopausal window that those estrogen levels are starting to change. So actually, if you're symptomatic, as soon as your symptoms start to have an effect on your quality of life, that's when you should be having that conversation with your doctor,
Yeah.
not waiting until your periods are finished or you're 50 or whatever. Because, you know, if somebody was diagnosed as diabetic, we wouldn't say to them, well, wait 5 years and we'll give you insulin then. You know, we just wouldn't do it. We're talking about essentially, with long term, we're talking about a hormone deficiency. You know, we're probably all going to live 30, 35, 40 years post menopause. Exactly. So I would say, you know, sort of do your own research. You know, listen to some of what Lisa Mosconi has got to say about her research. She's done loads of podcasts and vlogs and things recently. It is really fascinating. We're probably talking 20 years until we've got, you know, kind of reams of hardcore research evidence. But she's using brain scans to do this stuff. She's actually looking at people's brains from 1 week to the next, and she's seeing the changes happen. Now, is it going to happen to everybody? No, it's not. Do we know why? No, we don't. But I think, you know, sort of, it's also worth looking at your own family history for things like osteoporosis, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease. It's worth going and having that conversation. But at the end of the day, it does have to be an informed personal decision.
Okay, we'll do one last question, and then let's just, because we haven't even talked about all the other types yet. My only issue at the moment is low libido. I'm on 75 milligrams estrogen and 1 testosterone sachet per week. It's been 3 weeks of testosterone, not much difference yet. So do I up the estrogen?
Okay, so I've got no idea, but I'm guessing that person has had their womb removed because they haven't mentioned progesterone.
It's estrogen and testosterone.
And because they're on testosterone, I'm guessing they possibly have had their ovaries removed too. I don't know the answer to that. I think the thing is 3 weeks is not very long for a start. No. You know, you probably need to give it 3 months rather than 3 weeks. There is quite a complex interplay between estrogen and testosterone. If you're on testosterone, really, we want to know what your baseline testosterone is before you start on testosterone. If you are somebody who's on testosterone, you should be having that checked at least once a year. Have your testosterone level checked at least once a year. I really think that if you're struggling, first of all, I don't think it's a long enough test. I think you need to give it longer. But if after 3 months you're still struggling, I think you then need to go back to your prescriber and talk about what needs to change. Because I think, again, it's about adjusting the dose, but that has to be done for you personally.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about vaginal estrogens, lovely.
We better. Well, just so, listen, we talked about the gels, the sprays, the patches.
There are also tablets, of course.
We haven't even touched on them. And there's also the ring.
These we can talk.
Okay. So I think maybe, look, correct me if I'm wrong, right? The way I look at it is, if it was me tomorrow and I had to make a decision whether I wanted to start HRT and looking at estrogen only, My first port of call, from all that I know and the research that I've done, and you know what you've told me, I would certainly be looking at a gel or a spray. That would be the first port of call for me in terms of where I would go. I guess that all depends on your personal history and so forth before I'd start looking at the at taking the pill. And I think the big difference when it comes to the pill is that the gels and patches and sprays, etc., bypass the liver, so they don't have an impact on the liver. The liver does not like estrogen. That's a fact. Whereas the oral tablet has to be broken down. The digestive system has to, you know, it has an impact on the liver. So the risks are different compared to the gels and patches.
Yeah, there's a small increased risk of blood clot with the tablet. So obviously, if you're somebody who has had a DVT, if you've got a family history of stroke, if you're a heavy smoker, if your BMI is over 30, etc., you know, menopause specialists would always advise transdermal first. It's fair to say that there are a small proportion of women who simply do not absorb transdermal well. So if they want to have HRT, they end up having a tablet. As we said earlier, you know, if you've had your womb removed, estrogen only. If you've still got your womb, you need a type of progesterone too. So I think, you know, if I go back to kind of British Menopause Society, what the menopause specialists would say is the kind of, in inverted commas, gold standard treatment would be transdermal estrogen for somebody who didn't have their womb, or transdermal estrogen with the micronized body identical progesterone for somebody who does have their womb. But there is also the option of tablets, A, if that's your personal preference, because for some people they just prefer it, and B, if you don't absorb transdermal well. So I think it's important for people to know they have options.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so let's then quickly, we have 6 minutes. Good God, to cover our favorite subjects. Okay, sorry, just to mention too, not very popular here, but there is obviously the implants. It would have been more popular a few years ago. I'm not sure in the UK, but just in terms of forms, before we go on to talk about local estrogen, but just to mention that as well. But I don't think that's anywhere near as popular as it may have been in the past.
Implant here is only really available via menopause clinics, and generally, NHS wise, is generally reserved for young women who need higher doses. Obviously you can buy it privately, but it's very, very expensive. Yeah.
Okay, so just to talk then about good old local estrogen. So for vaginal dryness, and I know you're doing a live later on at 7 with Jane. So I would say to anybody who wants any information on vaginal atrophy, vaginal dryness, definitely tune into that tonight. I've done several lives with Jane, and Diane and Laura and I have all talked about this. I mean, it's you could spend hours on it, but
yeah, I guess just on that part.
Yeah. So the way I look at it when it comes to the local estrogen is, you know, you have first of all your Vagifem, which is a form of tablet that goes in by a long applicator locally into your vagina. You also have the cream, and then you also have the ring, like the E-string. And I think over here, what often happens is women will start on the tablet, which is Vagifem. They will do that, kind of see how they react to that. If it works, then fine. If it doesn't work, it may be then that they'll move on to the cream. One of the benefits that that women often say to me about the cream is that they find that it really, that for them, personal again, it works, it helps them in terms of the local dryness, but that they also find that they are getting a little kickback in terms of there's a little bit of it escaping into the bloodstream. So
Right.
it's, you know, I'm sure it'll be minute amounts, but
Tiny, weeny
yeah,
doses.
yeah, but obviously that's now you're in a lot of the cases you're talking about people who are very much just in maybe the earlier stages of perimenopause and earlier stages of vaginal dryness.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah. I
ring.
mean, as
And
far
I think with the ring,
go on, lovely.
no, I was just going to say with the ring, I think it works for some people. It doesn't necessarily work for other people. I know, in particular, I know one friend who's a runner and has tried the ring and it hasn't worked because she's just found that it slips out.
Yeah.
Look, again, it's different circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've got, I don't know kind of product wise, but we've got several others here as well. We've got something called Invagis, which is like a soft pessary. There's a tablet called ospemifene, which is an oral tablet. There's a gel called Blissel. There's another, I think there's about 8 now, vaginal
Okay.
products. But it's, I think it's,
sorry, Diane, where can people get a list of those? Is that
okay.
on your website or
Yeah,
Jane's?
yeah. So if you go to the menopausesupport.co.uk website, go to resources,
Yeah,
and in resources you'll find it's called the Menopause Support Guide to Understanding Vaginal Atrophy. Jane's done a whole list for us of all the
okay.
different products, but I think it's important to say a lot of people get prescribed Vagifem. They'll
Yeah.
talk to their doctor about what they call vaginal dryness. They'll get prescribed
1 minute.
Vagifem, and actually
1 minute.
it's not internal that they're having the problem with. The problem is their vulva. They're having itchiness and dryness on their vulva, and the cream is much better for that. So some
Yeah.
people even end up using both together. But I think it's also about the terminology. So, you know, I always, when I work with people, I always make it really clear, are we talking internally or are we talking externally?
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I think that kind of can confuse the issue as well.
Yeah. And
There's
I
lots
think,
of
look,
people saying they're using these products and getting on really well with them, which is brilliant.
good. Okay. Okay. I'm behind on the comments. We have 40, 50 seconds left.
Okay.
Sorry, we could probably talk more about the vaginal applications, but I think we can certainly do that again. But I would say definitely watch the live tonight with Jane and Diane because they'll go into so much detail about it. There's been a few questions actually about teeth and gums. Can menopause affect the teeth and gums? My understanding, yes, totally. And you'll often find it's estrogen again, and you'll often find that if you've never had gum disease before, that you might start to have gum disease.
Dry eyes, dry mouth,
yeah.
receding gums, burning tongue, all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. And can I just say in relation to dryness, because again this comes up a lot, and I know Jane and I have talked about this. Even if you have like tearing coming from your eyes, or even if you have discharge coming from your vagina, that does not mean you don't have dryness. It's actually nearly telling you you have dryness. A lot of women that I will work with will say, oh, but Catherine, I'm tearing from my eyes, so I can't have dryness, or I'm having a discharge. Actually, totally, it's telling you, yes, you do have dryness. Just to mention that, because it certainly confuses a lot of people. Rachel, I love your comments. Yes, there's thousands of menopausal women. What else have we got here? Anything else we should say? Well, okay. Also, women need to be aware that you might need systemic HRT as well as local HRT for vagina, as the HRT alone may not be sufficient. Very true. I know. I was
about
talking
25% of women who are using HRT will need both.
Yeah. And I know in the UK, or sorry, not in the UK. I was texting Jane about this last night. In the US, they have Femring, which seemingly, when it comes to vaginal dryness, it's it's one of the most effective resources in terms of putting moisture and estrogen back into the vagina, but then that it also travels throughout the body. But I don't believe that's available in the UK. Jane didn't think it. Yeah.
No, not yet. No, not
So,
yet, lovely.
I don't think we've anyone from the US on. Need more of these chats to educate ourselves. Thank you, Mary. We will do more.
Yeah, we can talk for ages.
I would say 5 seconds for anyone. Diane and I both do a lot of Instagram lives on our